LoreWarrior Online. YMN-6Y Yeoman. Overview. Along with the Eagle, the Yeoman represents Curtis Militech's attempt to capitalise on the success of their Wraith design. In a departure from the Wraith, the Yeoman lacks jump jets, as Curtis developers deemed them unnecessary for the mech's main role of fire support. Intended to compete with the Apollo and the Trebuchet designs, the Yeoman carries more missiles for its size than any Innisphere mech currently in production. To load on so many missile racks, the designers had to reduce armor protection and keep the mech relatively slow, though they did manage to avoid using an expensive and dangerous XL engine. As with the Eagle, the Yeoman uses a standard chassis, more easily repairable than the Wraiths, to keep the cost down. Capabilities. With 2 LRM-15 racks, 2 LRM-10 racks and plenty of ammo, the Yeoman is dedicated as a fire support mech. Its lack of any secondary weapons, however, makes potential pilots nervous. Curtis designers chose to protect both side torsos with case, which will likely see considerable use because of the mech's reduced armor coverage. Curtis believed that as a fire support mech, the Yeoman should avoid direct contact with the enemy, and so gave priority to weapons over armor protection. With all of the new LRM ammunition types being produced in the Free Worlds League, the Yeoman's arsenal will likely see quite a bit of use. Curtis has tried to convince potential buyers that the Yeoman is a natural companion to the Eagle because of the latter's tag system that can target for the new semi-guided LRMs. The LCCC seems reluctant to believe this hype, however, apparently remembering the failed partnership of the Hammer and Anvil promoted so strongly by the Free World's defense industries. Deployment. Though the first shipment of Yeomans turned up throughout the Free Worlds League militia, the vast majority were distributed to the various Free Worlds Legionnaires units. Surprisingly, the Capellan Confederation has shown little interest in the design, apparently preferring its older catapults for direct fire support. And understandable as well, the fucking meme machine, the Yeoman. How this thing got past any kind of okay as far as art department design was concerned is beyond me. It's a 60-tonner, using the Curtis Yeoman chassis. Its power plant is a Pitband 240 with a cruise speed of 43 and a max speed of 65 kph, obviously with no jump jets. Its armour is the Calon Free Worlds League Special Ferrofibrous, and it has 2 LRM-15s and 2 LRM-10 launchers. It's manufactured by Curtis Militech, and its primary factory is on Paradise. Its communication system is the Curtis Com Mark IV, and its targeting and tracking is the Dynatech Missile Track 10. Overall, this means it's a mech that can walk 4 and run 6. It has 20 heat dissipation via 10 double heatsinks, with 9 armor protection on the head, 23 on the CT with 6 on the rear, 21 on the side torso, also with 6 on the rear, and then 15 on the arms and legs, if you can call them arms. And yes, its LRM-15 and LRM-10 are both mounted on the right torso, with another LRM-15 and LRM-10 in the left in the left torsos. It has 16 shots for the LRM-15 and 12 shots for the LRM-10, and then another case of 16 and 12, for the respective launchers on both sides. Plenty of ammo, plenty of weaponry, but is it actually that good? I would say no. The Yeoman is actually one of those designs. Sorry, we're recording a few of these, so my throat's getting a bit screwed up. I think the Yeoman is actually a perfect design in universe as one of those failed ventures. One of the things that I think some people who view Battletech purely from a kind of competitive standpoint is, why would you take this when you can do that? And it's viable in terms of how a lot of modern day gaming is all about kind of optimizing and taking the most optimum kit and stuff. But that isn't a lot of what Battletech is about, especially with some of the write-ups. From a player perspective, when you're building a force, you can go, I have this much to spend points on, this is what I will take, and you have the whole thing available to you in a lot of cases. But in a factor like this, where this is a mech that was built by the Free Worlds League, so it's a mech that's probably only seen in the Free Worlds Leagues, and maybe a few mercenary units here and there dotted around from those mercs who are desperate enough to want to buy something like the Yeoman, even though probably there are cheaper, older designs, again in the form of the Trebuchet and the Catapult, amongst others. So the idea of this thing rolling out of production, factory lines, and the people making it being like, what do you think? Looks good, huh? And everyone is just in the boardroom just being like, the fuck is that? What the hell is this? kind of thing. It's good. It fits for that. I actually I appreciate the fact that this is a design that is clearly created, and it doesn't have a chance in hell of ever really succeeding. And that's what's cool about the BattleTech universe, is you have these failed ventures, these, you know, like almost wacky ideas that like someone came up with, and somehow, just like in real life, with real militaries, somehow these things end up actually going up the chain and following through, and then a production is made, and it is terrible at the end of the day. But at that point, so many different people in so many different parts of the ladder are now involved in this. No one wants it to fail. No one wants to admit it was a bad idea, so they just push on and go through with it anyway. And when the thing arrives, nobody who was outside of this process is celebrating it. They're all just out there going, what the fuck is this? It's an immense waste of money. And I think that's exactly what this is. The Yeoman doesn't really bring anything particularly different or unique to the table. Sure, it has a lot of missile weapons capable of doing a lot of damage, but there are plenty of other battle mechs out there that have far more versatility to it. I mean, this is bordering on the Bombardier in terms of how potentially dangerous this is for the pilot, in the sense that it's got virtually... The Bombardier has a very, very limited amount of self-defense if something attacks it. This has 0 defense, which means it has to have a bodyguard or two just to be able to effectively use its weaponry without the fear of being just rushed by fast-moving targets that can start picking it apart. It literally can't defend itself against any other mech that decides to get within range of it. It also can't retreat very quickly. 4 and 6 sound great on paper, but you imagine on the table trying to turn this thing around to leave the field. Even on a run, you have to go on the spot for, like, if it's facing one way, that's 3 of its movement just to turn around, and then 3 hexes away with its back exposed. It ain't great. No capability of being able to return fire against anything unless it's at long range. And yeah, it really does suck. The art doesn't help this thing, as the missile launchers look fucking huge for what it is. They don't even make sense about how this thing would actually aim and fire the weapon systems. It's very unusual from an art perspective. It just doesn't make sense. I know why many people will turn this thing into the equivalent of a meme these days, because yeah, it's kind of silly. Yeah, it just, the missiles are big enough that they actually look like Arrow 4 missiles than, you know, LRMs, which I always imagine LRMs were actually a smaller type of munition. You know, we're in the future, and munitions like this could probably become a lot smaller and more densely packed, with, you know, higher quality of explosives and stuff being more commonplace, and the production of them and the manufacturing techniques becoming so finely honed that LRMs are probably these relatively small looking munitions that can just be, you know, hundreds of them can be stacked inside a battle mech. This thing, if that's the size of the LRMs, that must be a hell of a lot of explosive packed into that fucker. It's just silly. The actual write-up isn't a bad idea, from a universe perspective of just a sort of corporate failure of a design, but the art doesn't really translate very well at all. Definitely a mech I would happily roll onto the field as an opponent, mainly just for the reaction of people on things like a stream and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a bad one. Definitely not something you would ever want to use. The Yeoman is a failure all around. But there we go. Yeah, well, thanks for listening, everybody, and that's a pretty scathing review of the poor little Yeoman. And I'll catch you all next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.